Good evening. This video is a Dutch classic with a twist. Tonight I'm going to be making something called kibbeling. And kibbeling is actual smaller chunks of fish that have been deep fried in a delicious beer batter. It's common street food in both Belgium and the Netherlands. There are very few ingredients in this wonderful dish. Of course, we start with our white fish. I'm going to use cod for today. I also need flour. I need cornstarch. I need a few spices, some salt, some garlic powder, some paprika. I'm going to be adding a little bit of cayenne pepper, which is not traditional to the recipe. And then finally, of course, we need our Belgian beer for our beer batter. So in just a second, I'll be putting together my batter. I already have about 2 to 4 centimeters of oil preheating in a big frying pan because that oil has to preheat for about 30 minutes. So like any decent beer batter, we're going to actually start with our dry ingredients and put them in this lovely bowl right here. So I've got my flour, I have my cornstarch, and then I just need to add my spices. 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and with the cayenne pepper, I'm just going to sprinkle it in, but probably about a half a teaspoon or less. Now we're going to take a quick whisk around the bowl, and finally, we will add our beer and whisk until it's about the thickness of pancake batter. All right. The fun of new recipes is figuring out what's going to go right and what's going to go wrong. In this case, 1 bottle or 330 milliliters of beer was simply not enough, and the batter was way too thick, so I've been thinning it out with some buttermilk that I had left over in my refrigerator. I did not measure how much buttermilk I put in there, but I would say it was probably close to a half a cup, maybe even more. But this is the consistency that we want. Pancake batter. So this is ready. We're going to let this sit for just a little while our oil continues to preheat, and I'll be preparing our fish in just a second. So I can smell my oil, which means that it's essentially done. And so I'm going to go ahead and prepare my fish for being battered and fried. This is a really nice big piece of cod with no bones and no skin. We don't need the skin if we're going to deep fry it. And I'm going to cut this cod into chunks, basically. That's all I have to do. And since this has already been trimmed to such a nice thickness, I'm just going to cut chunks that are about this size, and I'm going to set them behind me where I have laid out paper towels because we want to make sure that the fish is as dry as possible, because if it's not dry, the batter won't stick to the fish, and then it won't be battered fish anymore. Underneath this paper towel, I've been gently pressing on my cod pieces to make sure that they are nice and dry and ready for frying. So we're going to head on over to the stove. But most importantly, before we start to deep fry, you have to make sure that everything is prepared. Number 1, that you're wearing an apron and probably long sleeves, because whenever we're cooking with oil, it can splatter, and trust me, you don't want to get that on yourself. You also need a reliable utensil that is heat proof, that's going to be able to take the fish quickly out of your oil, because it will not take long to cook fish in this type of batter. And you also need somewhere to drain the fish. In this case, I've just got a cookie sheet that's been lined with paper towels. So this oil has been preheating over medium heat for quite some time, about 30 minutes, and so I'm guessing that it is absolutely ready to fry. Beer battered things are a bit tricky because the batter will stick to your fingers. It's okay, the batter's going to poof up anyway. There's no need to stress about it. So here's what we're going to do. We will take a piece of our fish and our batter here. We are going to place our fish in the batter and just roll it on around until it's nice and coated. And yes, it will be coated. And see, it's okay where your fingers touched. It's going to be just fine. You might want to drag a little bit of the extra off, and we will gently set it into our oil. Do not let your fingers touch the oil. And let's just see how long this takes to cook. So now what we can see is we are less than 1 minute in, and we're already getting some nice brown color and some splatter. So I hope you've got your long sleeve shirt on. We're now at the 1 minute mark. We'll just turn him around so that we can see the color. It's looking really nice. It's not quite done yet. Beware of the splatter. And now we're about 2 minutes in. So we'll take him out of the oil and we'll just have a look. Now that color is looking just about perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to set him aside. We're going to let it cool for 30 seconds to a minute. We're going to cut him open and make sure that 2 minutes was enough time. So this has cooled off for just a second. We're just going to cut it open and make sure that 2 minutes was the right amount of time. We've got nice, flaky, but opaque, in other words, not clear fish. So what we're going to do then is we're going to batter and fry the rest of our fish, and I'll be back with you when it's time to serve. Our kibbling is finished. It looks delicious and golden brown and yummy, so we're going to go ahead and serve dinner. Now, unlike you would traditionally find it as street food, I'm actually going to be serving mine with some leftovers in our household that are entirely non-Belgian, and that is with my Spanish rice. And then in comes our fish. And then finally, some yummy, yummy lemon wedges. And there we are, kibbling. Enjoy.